Behind every single product you buy, from your morning coffee to your smartphone, there's this hidden architecture called a supply chain. And every single one of those is built on a high-stakes balancing act between two really simple goals: being cheap and being fast.
And that leads us to the one fundamental question that every company, from Amazon down to your local bakery, has to answer. Do you want to be efficient, keeping your costs at rock bottom, or do you want to be responsive, getting products to your customers in a flash? Because here's the secret: you can't be perfect at both. Let's dig into why.
So, here's what we're going to do. We'll start with that big trade-off. Then, we'll introduce the 6 key drivers that managers get to play with. We'll see how they work in the real world, both for logistics and for coordinating across different teams. We'll look at how success is measured, and then, to wrap things up, we're going to put you in the driver's seat.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1, the 6 drivers. Think of these as the levers of strategy.
Now, these 6 drivers, they fall into 2 main categories. First, you've got the logistical drivers. Think of these as the muscle of the operation: the facilities, the inventory, and the transportation that physically move all the stuff. Then you have the cross-functional drivers, and these act like the brains: the information, the sourcing decisions, and the pricing that coordinate the entire show.
So, Section 2, let's dig into those logistical drivers, the physical flow. And to make this really clear, we're going to use 2 companies with completely opposite philosophies: Walmart, the undisputed king of efficiency, and Dell's original direct-to-customer model, which was an absolute master of responsiveness.
First up, facilities. Pretty straightforward, right? These are the physical locations in the chain. We're talking factories that build, warehouses that store, and the retail shops that sell. But deciding where to put them and how big to make them, well, that's a massive long-term decision.
And wow, when you compare our 2 companies, the difference is night and day. Walmart, chasing pure efficiency, built this gigantic network of huge, automated distribution centers. Their whole goal? To cheaply restock thousands of stores. Dell, on the other hand, who cared all about responsiveness, did the exact opposite. They used lean assembly plants, not giant warehouses, to build computers only after a customer actually placed an order.
All right, next up is inventory. This is all the stuff that's sitting in the pipeline, everything from raw materials to finished products. And its main job is to act as a buffer, kind of like a cushion, absorbing the shocks from unpredictable demand, so you always have what customers need right when they need it.
And here again, their strategies could not be more different. Walmart's goal is efficiency through pure speed. They want super high inventory turnover. They use clever techniques like cross-docking to get products from inbound trucks to outbound trucks almost immediately, barely even stopping. Dell's responsive model? Totally the opposite. They kept their inventory of finished computers, which lose value fast, as low as possible. Instead, they stocked up on components, ready to build whatever a customer wanted at a moment's notice.
And that brings us to the 3rd logistical driver: transportation. This is all about moving that inventory from point A to point B. And the core trade-off here is really simple: fast costs more, slow costs less. Think about the difference between shipping something by air versus on a giant cargo ship. Just look at how each company uses transportation to hit their goal. For maximum efficiency, Walmart actually operates one of the world's largest private trucking fleets. This gives them incredible control over costs. Dell, needing that speed and responsiveness, partners with premium carriers like FedEx and UPS to get that custom-built PC to your front door as fast as humanly possible. All right, Section 3. So we've talked about the muscle of the supply chain. But, muscle is pretty useless without a nervous system to coordinate it all. And that's exactly what these next 3 drivers do. They're the connective tissue.
Information. Honestly, this is the glue that holds a modern supply chain together. It's all the data, all the analysis that allows every single part, from the factory floor to the store shelf, to talk to each other and work in perfect sync.
And this is a perfect example of using data for totally different goals. Walmart basically pioneered information sharing for efficiency. Their retail link system gave suppliers a live, real-time view of sales so they could help manage replenishment. Dell's model used information to connect the customer directly to the factory floor. When you placed an order online, it instantly kicked off production planning.
So who actually does the work? That's the core question of our 5th driver: sourcing. This is all about deciding who does what. Do you make a component yourself, or do you buy it from a supplier? Choosing your partners here is one of the most critical decisions you can make.
Walmart's strategy is just pure brute force scale. They use their immense buying power to source products globally at the absolute lowest cost possible. Dell's responsive model, though, needed the opposite. They had to build these deep, strategic partnerships with just a few key suppliers to guarantee a reliable flow of parts for all of their custom builds.
And now for our final driver, pricing. Now you might think pricing is just for the marketing folks, but nope, it's an incredibly powerful lever for managing the supply chain itself, because how you price your products directly shapes how your customers behave.
Okay, this is brilliant. Walmart's everyday low price strategy is a supply chain masterpiece. Why? Because it creates stable, predictable demand. No massive sales spikes, no crazy promotions. That means simpler planning and a hyper-efficient operation. Dell, however, used dynamic pricing. The price of your computer would actually change based on the components you picked, which subtly guided customers toward parts they had in stock. Genius, right?
Okay, Section 4, Measuring Success. So we've gone through all 6 drivers and the choices they create. But how do we know if a company is actually making the right choices? Well, it all comes down to the bottom line.
This framework really pulls it all together. Just look down the rows for each of the 6 drivers. For facilities, the trade-off is more locations for responsiveness versus fewer, bigger ones for efficiency. For inventory, holding more stuff makes you faster, but it costs more. For transportation, faster modes cost more. Simple. Information is kind of unique. Getting more and better data actually improves both responsiveness and efficiency. And with sourcing and pricing, you see that clear choice. Partner for speed and use dynamic prices, or source for low cost and use stable prices. See? There's no single right answer. It's all about making sure every single choice aligns with your company's big picture goal.
At the end of the day, the goal is pretty simple. Minimize the total supply chain cost while keeping your customers happy. A great supply chain boosts revenue just by making sure products are actually on the shelf when people want to buy them. And when you can lower your costs without hurting that revenue, you directly boost your profitability. That's what this is all about.
All right, final section. Now you're the strategist. It's your turn. We've seen how the 6 drivers, facilities, inventory, transportation, information, sourcing, and pricing are the levers you can pull to balance cost and speed. So let's put them to the test.
I want you to imagine a startup called Urban Nest. They build these beautiful, high-end, custom backyard studios. And they make a really bold promise. We'll deliver it in just 6 weeks. So their strategy clearly isn't about being the cheapest. It's all about customization and speed. They are 100% all in on responsiveness. So here's the final question for you to think about. If this was your company and you've made that incredible 6-week promise, how would you tune each of those 6 supply chain drivers to pull it off? From where you build your facilities to how you price your different options, what specific choices would you make to turn that responsive strategy into a reality?